Hello and welcome to the online version of EDIT 4170, specifically to talk about the Filamentality assignment as well as clean up a few other loose ends that we need to deal with before the end of the term. I'd like to begin today by talking a little bit about issues related to creating meaningful web pages. I'd like to talk a little bit today about effective instructional use of the internet. The Common Core state standards have very meaningfully and purposefully described different ways that technology ought to be incorporated into curriculum. And specifically, the Common Core state standards talk about the use of research. The Common Core state standards have very specific language indicating that students need to learn how to research, which means developing effective search strategies, and that these kinds of skills are embedded throughout all that they're doing. So there's not a separate standard that specifically focuses on developing research skills. That being said, it doesn't preclude the use of the internet for other purposes beyond learning how to search. And that means that in any curricular areas that we want to teach, we do want to give students specific opportunities to access the myriad of resources available on the internet. So that means that while we do need to give students opportunities to develop effective and efficient search strategies, which is something that the information literacy assignment helped you to think about when we completed that earlier in the semester, it also means that as teachers, we need to determine the type of content that would be meaningful and useful within our curricular areas that we would want to direct students to without having to spend class time making them try to search for useful sites. So that means that as teachers, we need to screen useful websites and we need to direct students directly to those sites so that we don't have to spend class time searching. Searching may yield really good information, but it also might engage students in a lot of time that probably could be spent doing other things that doesn't necessarily get them to sites that are either at the reading level or that would include useful information. And one of the neat things I think about being able to structure purposeful use of the internet is that you can direct different students or different groups of students to a variety of sites so that those who are reading at different levels don't necessarily know that the sites they're accessing are specifically chosen by you for them based on reading level, but it also allows students to be sent to websites that offer a variety of perspectives that can then come together collectively when they're in a group setting to discuss and inform and broaden their perspectives about things. One of the key reasons to use the internet beyond the amount of textual information that's out there is the fact that the internet also includes a variety of information that is video-based, animations, interactive, audio, images, multimedia sites that can really help students internalize content in a way that is a little more difficult when we're just dealing with either discussions in class or text-based information. And in thinking about your use of the internet with your students, what's really important is that you don't just send them to purely drill and practice kinds of websites, but that you think about sending them to sites that will, with your support and scaffolding, engage them in critical thinking. So that means you might need to do a little bit of preparation ahead of time to come up with questions to ask students to ponder as they interact with the information. One resource that will serve the purpose very well, and the one that we're going to use in class, is a resource called Filamentality. This particular website is free for educators. It is offered by AT&T. It's been around for over a decade, well over a decade now. And it is structured in a way to allow educators to design kind of specific websites. There's not going to be a lot of fluff in what you create. It will be very easy to use, but there won't be a lot of bells and whistles. You won't be able to add images to the web page, for example. You'll be somewhat limited in terms of adding colors to your text and background things. And other websites might give you more flexible options, but this one allows you to very quickly, as an educator, set up a site that your students could access in which you could channel them to the resources you want them to go to. There are several activity options available at the Filamentality website. So the activity options that Filamentality makes available to you include a hot list, which is simply a collection of websites that you would link to, a multimedia scrapbook where the resources you include would be grouped by the different type of media. So you would group things by images, by sound, and so on. Then there are the two that you're going to choose from for the assignment. One is called a treasure hunt, which has links to various websites, but then you also incorporate questions based on what students would encounter at each site. So it's like an augmented hot list. The other option that you can select is called a sampler, and this one is similar to a treasure hunt in that it will allow you to ask questions, and then it ends with a broad conclusion that you develop that would help students kind of pull all of the information together. The fifth option provided at the Filamentality website is what's called a web quest, which is a specific type of designed activity that a teacher would produce. That it includes an introduction, a task, a process, resources, evaluation, and conclusion. And that's just a little bit beyond what I want to do in this class, but it's a really nice way of engaging students in critical thinking in a very structured way. The Filamentality folder within our class Blackboard website includes a folder that will link to sample Filamentality pages. And I presently have a link to one that is a hunt and one that is a sampler. So I'm just going to click on the one leading to a hunt right now, just to show you what the format will look like to help you determine whether you want to create a hunt or whether you would rather create a sampler. So you'll see that these are kind of generic and sterile because there aren't any images here. You will have your title at the top, your name, and then there will be navigation links that will allow students to move within the site itself. Next, there's an introduction that you will develop, so you'll want to think about the text that you want to write in that introduction. Filamentality will actually create an introduction for you, but it will be very, very cheesy, and you need to change it to customize it in a way that will be meaningful for your students. If you choose not to change it, you won't get all the points on the assignment because it just really isn't a good fit. Next, in a hunt, you will create a list of questions that are customized for each link. So the first group of lessons or questions will relate to one of the links that you create, and that will be followed by a box that students could type responses in. Unfortunately, there's no way where they can save what they type, so they would be forced to print out their responses here. So you can see there's another set of questions followed by a text box, a third set of questions followed by a text box. And then there's a link to the resources that the questions are aligned with so that students could go directly to those sites. A hunt ends with the big question, which is a question you as a teacher develop. And the purpose of the big question is for students to basically pull things together from the various web resources that you sent them to. And that's how it ends. So that is an example of a hunt. A sampler will look somewhat similar, so it will have the title at the top, some navigation links, an introduction, and actually in this sample of that students would complete prior to reading Diary of Anne Frank, I think the teacher actually here sets up a really good introduction because it's giving students options for other activities that they're going to do as a result of perusing the links that are here. So it's a really nice way of getting students to think about the story prior to doing their read. Then in a sampler, the way the setup is designed is that one link is displayed, followed immediately by questions associated with that link. So students see the link, then they see the questions. They see the next link, then they see the questions associated with that, and so on. Whereas in a hunt, all of the questions are displayed up front, and then the links are embedded below that. So if you want there to be links followed directly by questions, which might be a little bit easier for students to manage, then you probably want to choose the sampler. The sampler ends with a conclusion which you will write, although as with the introduction, Filamentality will develop a conclusion for you, but again, it's very cheesy. You will not earn all of the points for the assignment if you don't customize the conclusion in some way. So that's what a sampler is. They're, both the hunt and the sampler are very similar in many respects. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how to develop your Filamentality website. Before you actually begin creating your site, I would encourage you to do some searching online to be able to come up with at least 3 websites that you feel are worth using. You will need to submit one curriculum standard at a minimum. If you are a counseling student, you can instead include or submit a counseling objective that would be appropriate, or if you're a special ed student, you'll be able to develop an IEP goal for a student that you would use to target for this particular assignment. So after coming up with the websites, then my other suggestion is that you actually list questions for each of the sites. So you'll have a minimum of 3 sites. For each site, you need to have a minimum of 1 question, or sometimes it might not be a question. Sometimes you might have a list of directions for what you would want students to do at a site, especially if it's an interactive website. So you might want to either pause the video now and compile that material and then go ahead and play it later, or you can complete watching the video now and just know that you're going to need to have some of those things at the time that you want to begin preparing your Filamentality site. So when you are in the Filamentality folder within Blackboard, the second link that's available there will take you directly to the Filamentality site. The first link, by the way, has a set of written instructions that will align with a lot of the things that I'm talking about here in the video itself. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the link to the Filamentality site. It will take me to the main resource, and what I'm going to do the first time is click on Start a New Page, and it will kind of prompt me through what I need to do. So it's going to ask me for the main topic, and in my case this is going to be about honeybees. I need to create a username, So I'm just going to type in a username. I need to type in a password. You can type in whatever you want, obviously, and then an email address that you don't mind having displayed on the site. I will tell you that there will probably not be a whole lot of visitors to the site, but Filamentality is fully searchable. So somebody could potentially be looking for a resource about a particular content area and potentially bring up your document based on that. So there are a couple of optional things that you can either choose to fill in or leave blank, including your school, internet location, personal homepage. So I'm going to go ahead and leave those blank for now, and then click where it says spin this thing. So you will see a summary of what you just completed. So your topic or subject, email address, and if you typed in any other information, it will appear there as well. And by the way, the password that you established, you will need to use that username and password to get back into your account if you want to go in to edit at any given time. So what I'm going to do next is down here at the bottom, it gives me add links and edit links. I can add links in groups of 3. I don't have to have multiples of 3, but it will give me 3 templates for websites to fill in each time. And then after that in blue, it gives me the 5 different activity formats that are available in Filamentality. So I'm going to click add links to begin. And when I add links, that also is a spot that saves the work that I'm doing in Filamentality. You're not going to see any save button anywhere. Clicking on add links or edit links will save what you do. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and add my links. I have my links already established, so I'm going to just copy and paste. You do need to make sure that you keep the http:// as part of the address, otherwise the link isn't going to work. You also need to type in a title that the user will see, so I'm just going to type in characteristics of honeybees. And if you type in a description, the user doesn't see the description, but you would see the description. So if you're trying to remember which link is which when you are editing later on, that might not be a bad idea in terms of having the information there, but it is optional. I'm going to go ahead and type in a second one. And this is more information on honeybees. And then my last one is a video on colony collapse. So what I do then after I have my links is I go down to the bottom and I can click add more links. I can click on edit links, or I can click on hunt or sampler. I'm actually going to click edit links at this point because this is where I can just confirm what I have. So I can actually click on any of these and make sure it will take me to the site I want to go to. But right now I'm just making sure that it's got everything there that I want and I'm satisfied with it. So my next step is to either click on hunt or sampler based on which of the 2 options you've selected. So I'm going to click on sampler, and you can go back and forth to refine at any time. So the next step is to actually add your questions for each of your links. So I have 2 questions for my first link, so I'm going to copy and paste them in. And by the way, when you develop your questions, what I would strongly suggest is that you develop them in a way that aligns with close reading of the text or the media. Right now with Common Core, it's really important that students learn how to cite evidence from the text or from the media. So we also want to think about how to ask questions that don't just ask them to repeat factual information from a website. We want students to think. We want them to be able to extract information in a way that doesn't necessarily come word for word from what they read. So if you think about those things as you're developing your questions, I think the quality of your Filamentality document will be much higher. You can see in my first one, and actually in my second link as well, I don't list 3 questions. So you can list up to 3 questions, but you're not required to have that many. So I'm going to go ahead and finish up here. I'm just going to paste things in one more. Okay, then what it asks for is it wants me to add a title. Now it will by default take the title that you had typed in and put the word sampler or hunt after it. So if that's satisfactory to you, you can keep it that way, or else you can change it to something else. But they do suggest that you keep it to a small title, so not lots of characters. And then they want you to add your introduction. So as I mentioned earlier, it has an introduction already typed for you, but it's really, really cheesy, and it's the same for everybody. So you definitely want to come in here and you want to add an introduction. So I have typed my introduction into a word process document, which allows me to do a spell and grammar check. The Filamentality site doesn't allow you to do that. So if that's an issue for you, make sure that you type it someplace else. You don't want there to be writing errors within this document, especially because it is a public document. Next, you get to the spot in the Filamentality site where you can add your conclusion. And it will be a conclusion if you've selected a sampler. If you've selected a hunt, then it will ask for the big question at this point. I'm going to go ahead and paste what I have developed previously as my conclusion, which in this case happens to be a series of questions anyway. And then maybe I want to give students directions for how they will respond. Then if I scroll down some more, it gives me options for a background color, which will be the background of the entire page. And maybe since my topic is bees, maybe I want a nice yellow background. Text background, make sure that if you do change colors, that there's enough contrast between your background color and your text color so that the user will be able to easily read the text. Link colors will be the color that your hyperlinks appear. There's already a default embedded, so if you don't want to change, you can keep it. And then visited link colors will be the color that the links appear after a user has clicked on the link to go to the website. So after you go through and make your choices, then to save it, again, and we can go back actually and edit it at any time, but to save, you need to click on one of the links across the bottom. So either add links, edit links, or preferably click on either the hunt or the sampler, whichever you initiated before. So I'm going to click on sampler, and it shows me the web address of the page that I just created, and that's important. You'll want to copy that because you're going to submit that in Blackboard. I need to be able to link to that site to be able to see what you've created. So you'll scroll down after copying that, and this will be a quick look at the sampler. It may or may not actually show you your background colors and things at this point, but it'll at least give you what everything looks like. And so if you see typing errors, or if you know you want to add or change a question or a link, you can do that now. So I can see the sites. I could test my links from here to make sure that they work. I can see my conclusion. And then if I want to make changes, I can either click Sampler, Edit Links, or Add Links. So those are the options you have. If you do make changes, the web address for your site does not change. So once you've done the initial copy, you'll have that. And if you need to go back and get that web address again, just click on Sampler or Hunt, and it will always show that at the top of the page. So when you are when you've completed the assignment, what you're going to do to submit is click the Submit Assignments button in Blackboard. You will scroll down to Filamentality, and what it tells you is that you're going to upload a word process document that contains whatever standards you've addressed. So you will have a document that will list the standards, so not just the word standards, but you're actually going to include them there. And then you're going to paste the web address. You're going to save that document, and that's what you actually upload to Blackboard. So you'll click on Browse My Computer, and you will then find that document. So the document itself won't actually have a whole lot of content in it, but it will allow me to see the standard you're addressing, and it will allow me to hyperlink to your website. So this assignment is due in Blackboard at the beginning of your class session, in which you begin your ethics WebQuest presentations. So depending on when you're watching the video, that might give you a little bit more or a little bit less than a week to actually complete the assignment. I also want to just remind you that there is a discussion board post up through your last one will actually be on the first night of Ethics WebQuest presentations. So be sure that you are following along in Blackboard to make sure you're reading or viewing videos and then responding to the discussion board posts weekly based on the pattern that has been established during the semester. In terms of the Ethics WebQuest, I also just want to give you a couple of reminders. You need to be prepared to present right away beginning at the onset of the class in which your presentations will begin. There's not going to be time in class that night for you to make preparations. We need to be able to just get groups going. So come with your content, either if it's something you're going to present, either have it on a flash drive or have it as something that you can log into very, very quickly, because we can't spend a lot of time transitioning between groups. Also, just a reminder, there is an individual contribution evaluation form in Blackboard that you need to complete for each member of your group. If you navigate to the Ethics WebQuest assignment, inside the folder is a link to an individual contribution document, so group member evaluation form. You will open the form and you will fill it in with each group member name, including yourself. So you would type your name in there, and then you would type in the names of your other group members. And you're going to actually type in a numerical value reflecting your evaluation of the contribution each person made. So if you feel that each member of your group did what you discussed as a group each person was going to contribute, then you can give that group member up to 5 points. If you feel that one or more of your group members didn't uphold their end of things, or they didn't contribute to the extent that was expected, then you can type in a score that's less than a 5. So you will also type in a comment for each person relative to their contribution. So you can type in why you gave the person the score that they did, perhaps talking about specifically how they contributed to the group. After you complete that document and save it, then that's actually the only thing that you're going to submit to Blackboard with regard to your presentation. So when you scroll down under Submission and go to Ethics, you are going to upload that individual contribution document. So everything else, the rest of your score will be comprised of your presentation as well as your wiki, but the individual contribution is 5 points out of 20 for the assignment. Lastly, I would just like to very briefly mention the fact that we do have a Master of Arts in Education with major would be curriculum and instruction, and area of concentration would be educational technology. So if any of you are interested in pursuing that, the web address that would take you to information about it is listed below. The content of the MA program, there are 5 courses in educational technology. There is an intro to research course that's required of all MA in education programs. You would have to take either a qualitative or quantitative research class after the intro to research, and then you'd have 1 elective. In addition, you would take 2 units or 2 enrollments in a project or thesis. So it would be 10 courses total, 8 that would be in the classroom really, and then 2 enrollments in project or thesis. So the EdTech courses are mostly online courses. There's a couple of them where you might have a few meetings during the semester, but it kind of makes it a flexible program for people in terms of time. The course content deals with, there's one that's Advanced Integration Strategies, which follows very nicely from EDIT 4170. There's a multimedia development course. There's one course that deals with social, ethical, and legal issues of technology, both in education and society at large. There's one course that is kind of a combination of technology for staff development or helping staff learn how to use technology, grant writing, a little bit about networking, like the hardware, software, although the course is not designed to make people a network expert by any means. It's not a techie class, so it's just basic understanding of networking. And then the last EdTech class, and they're not in any particular order, but that one deals with research related to technology and teaching and learning, as well as data-driven decision making. So if you're interested, the web address that I list here also has a link to my contact information, so I'd be happy to answer questions via email or via phone, or we can set up a meeting via Skype. But just be aware that we have the program. You're welcome to enroll at any time. And I strongly encourage you to do so, especially with the coming of the Common Core and the way technology is embedded into the Common Core standards. So that concludes the presentation. I hope that you found meaningful information here. Certainly you're welcome to go back and replay any of the content related to developing the Filamentality site as needed. See you soon.